Now that I have finished up my reviews of the legendary Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles beat-em-up games for the arcade, Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis, including their spiritual successor, the recently released Shredder's Revenge, I've decided to now focus my attention on the trilogy of TMNT games that came out on the original Game Boy between 1990 and 1993. Though portable games, especially the ones from around this time, were heavily compromised compared to games found on home consoles, these three managed to rise above the limitations of the Game Boy hardware and are easily some of the best from the superhero genre found on that platform, in my opinion. Now, several years ago, I had reviewed the first game of the TMNT trilogy, Fall of the Foot Clan, and while I was mostly satisfied with that original video, I still felt I could have done the game better justice. My capture of it using my Super Game Boy wasn't the most ideal, and of course I completely ignored its sequels, Back from the Sewers and Radical Rescue, that each have their own endearing aspects to them that shouldn't be overlooked. So, I will be reviewing Fall of the Foot Clan again, in addition to the other two games in the series, in one singular video. We'll compare the three titles, go through some of their strengths and weaknesses, and by the end, I'll let you know which one I think is the best of the trilogy. Alright, let us begin with the game I have already reviewed before, TMNT Fall of the Foot Clan. Developed by Konami and released in August of 1990, the game is based on the classic 1987 animated series, and most of its gameplay elements and visuals take heavy influence from Konami's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the arcade that came out the year prior. In Fall of the Foot Clan, you can select any of the 4 turtles to play as in the game's 5 levels. They each wield their iconic weapons, the katana, sai, bow staff, and nunchaku, but all of their attack animations are exactly the same, so don't expect any variety here. It is Game Boy after all. Regular attacks are performed while standing and pressing the attack button, but you can also perform attacks while jumping. Holding the jump button down will cause your turtle to do a somersault mid-air. If you crouch down and then attack, you can also throw shurikens, of which you have an infinite supply of. Like I stated, there are 5 levels in Fall of the Foot Clan, and you can attempt any of them right from the get-go. This was before save states were commonplace, so it's a nice feature to have here if you need to turn the game off and come back to it later. However, unless you beat all 5 of the levels in one sitting, you will not get to see the complete ending, so that's something to strive for. You get 4 lives, 1 for each turtle that can get captured, but the game isn't overly difficult, and only takes around 25 minutes to complete. Without question, it's the shortest and easiest of the TMNT trilogy, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily the weakest of the 3 games. I think Fall of the Foot Clan does find the right balance with its challenge level to appeal to gamers of all ages, and its short length gives it a lot of replayability too. In some of the levels, there are hidden areas you can access that teleport you to one of 3 mini-games that not only pad out the game's length a little bit, but also provide some more variety to what the player is doing. The first one is against Master Splinter, who gives you 10 tries to guess a number he is thinking of between 1 and 999. It might seem impossible at first, but he does tell you if the number you have chosen is larger or smaller than the one he is thinking of, and the more times you do it, the more predictable the AI becomes. Another one has you shooting at black discs launched into the air, I assume with your shurikens, to test your ninja reflexes or something, but it's really awkward aiming the reticle with the directional pad. The last one is really fun, a bit of a brain teaser, against Krang. You take turns grabbing ninja stars and have to leave your opponent with the last one. It's simple, sure, but still my favorite of the bunch, just because you're beating Krang at his own game, proving your intellectual superiority. The story of Fall of the Foot Clan is similar to the one found in the original arcade game. April O'Neil is kidnapped by the Shredder and Krang, and it's up to the Ninja Turtles to get her back, fighting through their army of foot soldiers, mousers, and unicycle security robots called Roadkill Rodneys that can electrocute you with their tendrils. Level 1 takes place on the streets of New York, having you dodge groups of foot soldiers riding motorcycles before making your way into the sewers, avoiding the odd bat and falling debris. At the end of the level, you encounter Rocksteady, and the easiest strategy I find with him is to keep jumping over the bullets he fires and strike him repeatedly on the way down. Stage 2 is in what appears to be a subway tunnel, or possibly a factory of some kind. There are several pillars on the ground and ceiling looking to crush you into a turtle pancake. There are giant boulders that roll towards you that need to be avoided, and even fireballs that fly out of the ground that sort of remind me of Ghastly from Pokemon. The boss at the end of this level is Bebop, who charges left and right, punches at you, and fires his ray gun. Stage 3 is on the highway and has you fighting across the rooftops of a convoy, an awesome visual, and getting blocks thrown at you by foot soldiers, which can be deflected, ending in a confrontation with Baxter Stockman. Level 4 takes place in a waste dump ravine, with giant logs floating by and deadly fish attacking you when you fall into the deeper parts of the water. You reach a hidden cave where you fight the Shredder, and he's definitely the hardest of the bosses in the game, at least for me. You need to land a hit on him and then quickly change direction to avoid a downward slash from his sword. He also teleports to both sides of the screen, so you always need to keep moving. Level 5 is the main event within the mobile battle fortress, the Technodrome. It's the most difficult of all the stages, naturally, and throws just about everything at you except the kitchen sink. I remember always losing at least a turtle trying to get through it whenever I played this game as a kid. Once you get to Krang, you battle him in his android body, and once he's defeated, he gets warped back to Dimension X. Fall of the Foot Clan may be elementary in terms of its gameplay. It's not all that challenging either, but its visuals have a lot of charm to them and are very faithful to the look and tone of the original 1987 Ninja Turtles cartoon. Fall of the Foot Clan is not only a solid TMNT game, but it's a solid Game Boy game as well. Fairly impressive for something that came out back in 1990. It laid a strong foundation for the rest of the series to build on. The end credits teased the return of Krang, wanting revenge against the Ninja Turtles, which brings us to the next game in the trilogy, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Back from the Sewers. With TMNT 2, this one attempted to bring in a lot more elements found in the hugely successful arcade games, with varying results. You've got a decent attempt at an intro cutscene, modeled after the one from the cartoon, and graphically, a lot of it has been upgraded compared to the first game, with more detail in the level backgrounds, some of the combat and enemy animations. There is even a character selection page that actually shows each of the turtles this time, with their weapons, not just their names in boring text on a blank screen. There is more of a cinematic feel to some of the moments in this game, and it tries its best to provide additional variety to what you are doing. You have the standard side-scrolling stuff, but also skateboarding sections, where you are not only fighting foot soldiers, but dodging rolling barrels or spiked mines in the sewers. There are chasing sequences, with you having to avoid large boulders, and several areas that go for a more 2.5D perspective, like the elevator battles, and the one in the rundown building where you save April near the end. Even the types of foot soldiers are more diverse. You don't just have ones that dive and charge at you, but also ones that slide kick into you, or throw bombs from the edge of the screen, or while they are hanging from ladders. And the bosses require a lot more skill and strategy to beat this time around. They have more hit points, feel more aggressive, and you will need to memorize their attack patterns. You can't just blindly swipe at them hoping they will die before you do. A lot of the new features here build upon what was found in Fall of the Foot Clan, and once again make it feel a lot more like those arcade games. Konami really tried to push the Game Boy to its absolute limits with this one, but unfortunately, I think it may have been a little too ambitious for the time. While there is still fun to be had here, Back from the Sewers is my least favorite of the trilogy. It just doesn't control as well as the other games do, and feels very stiff in comparison. The combat in Back from the Sewers feels both better and worse than Fall of the Foot Clan. You now have a slide kick, which is pretty cool and useful in a few areas to dodge incoming attacks. You can jump between the foreground and background planes, and can even climb and flip up to higher ledges. But unlike Fall of the Foot Clan, TMNT 2 doesn't let you throw shurikens, which I admit was a pointless novelty in the first game, but here I think they would have come in handy against some of the flying enemies. The first game's attacks didn't really offer much of a difference from turtle to turtle, and it's the same here, but the swiping animations look far less impactful to me, like they are swinging at enemies with short-range butter knives or something. Most animations look great, like the added frames to the jumping, but others, like the jump and slide kicks, look weird, like your turtle has broken his leg in 15 places. Just like the previous game, you have 4 lives, represented by each Ninja Turtle, that can be defeated and captured. After beating a stage, of which there are 6 in total, you have the opportunity to free one of your brothers by defeating the android policeman REX-1, or Rex-1, which is pretty difficult, because you have to do so within a time limit, and each time you are hit, you lose 10 seconds off the clock. But I enjoy the inclusion of the Rex character and the opportunity to get lives back. In the first game, you were shit out of luck when you lost one of your turtles. It was depressing, but here you at least get to save them. If by chance you complete a stage without losing any of your turtles, you are instead given one of several bonus stages, where you collect as many pizzas as you can within the time limit. Oh, and speaking of pizza, this game's pause screen is pretty cute. It says pizza time, as if you are taking a break from playing the game to go have some. TMNT Back from the Sewers gave me quite a bit of trouble. It's definitely a lot harder than Fall of the Foot Clan. In fact, I think it's the hardest game of the Game Boy trilogy, at least from start to finish. Like I said, the gameplay feels very stiff, and I found myself dying a lot more playing this one, which I didn't always feel like my skill level was to blame, but the issues within the game itself. The range of your attacks feels much smaller than before, and your hitbox feels larger, which I think was the main culprit behind many of my deaths. Some of the levels in Back from the Sewers can be really annoying, like the one where you are climbing higher and higher on these floating platforms. So many of them look identical, and many of the layouts seem to repeat that it's easy to lose track of where you are. I also really hate the mousers in this game, and I'm being serious. They are not fun. They infinitely spawn into areas, which makes jumping over any gaps or obstacles near them almost impossible. You have to time it just right, and even then, you end up taking a few hits in mid-air. I don't know why the developers felt the need to do this with them in the game. It's ridiculous. Back from the Sewers is pretty damn challenging, and the only way I was able to get footage of the final level was to use an invincibility cheat, so keep that in mind moving forward. The story of Back from the Sewers is the same old shtick. April O'Neil gets kidnapped yet again by the Shredder and Krang, who intend to set a deadly trap for the heroes in a half-shell. The other villains you go up against include Rocksteady, Bebop, Baxter Stockman, one of those pizza monsters that look kind of like a xenomorph, Sergeant Granitor, and General Trag. You get to battle both Shredder and Krang twice. Shredder turns into Super Shredder on an elevator near the end, and with Krang, you fight him in a walker mech at the construction site, and then, as the final boss, in his android body. And in Back from the Sewers, this thing is massive, just towers over you. I had mentioned that the graphics in this game are an improvement over the originals, but I am mostly referring to the animations, the backgrounds, the environments in general, because I feel the character sprites in this game are hit and miss, and not as charming as the ones found in the first game. The turtles have always looked kind of goofy to me, walking around and moving like robots, and the position of their pupils make it look like they are constantly looking upwards, something you can't unsee once you notice it. And while a few of the bosses look okay, some are kind of awkward too. Super Shredder is hunched over with bad posture, like Quasimodo or something. And though the giant Krang body is awesome, the torso is way too large compared to his limbs, too exaggerated. With everything I've said about Back from the Sewers, I want to stress that I do still enjoy this game to a degree. It's not terrible, and content-wise, it has a lot going for it. It's basically one of those TMNT arcade games ported directly to the Game Boy, as strongly as it could have been given the limitations of the hardware. But out of all three games in the trilogy, it is my least favorite, and one I would only recommend to the die-hard Ninja Turtles fans among us. If you aren't one, then you can pass it by. Moving on now to the final installment of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games on the Game Boy, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3: Radical Rescue. Now this one is really interesting, because it completely changed up the formula that was found within the previous two games in the series. While it does have side-scrolling and combat elements, it puts more of an emphasis on platforming and non-linear exploration, functioning like Metroid or Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Radical Rescue takes place 1 year after Shredder's defeat in Back from the Sewers, and starts you off with Michelangelo as the only playable turtle. His three brothers have all been captured by Shredder, trying to save Master Splinter and, you guessed it, April, who had also been captured while he was out getting some pizza. When he returns, a mysterious figure invites him to try and rescue his allies in an abandoned mine on the outskirts of the city. It's up to you to traverse the depths of the mine, find key cards to open up new passageways, keys to unlock the prison doors housing your trapped teammates, and utilize the unique abilities of each unlocked Ninja Turtle to progress even further into the dungeon. Michelangelo can hover over large gaps using his nunchucks as a propeller. Raphael can squeeze into his shell to get through tight areas. Donatello can stick to walls using his bow staff and climb them, and Leonardo drills into the ground with his katana. Some of the abilities seem kind of silly, like Leo's drilling mechanic, and a few of the others, like Raph's ability to enter his shell and Donnie's ability to climb, should be skills all four turtles should be able to utilize in all honesty. But I still commend the developers for trying something new and making each of these characters feel unique compared to the others. Having this game play out in a non-linear way is really refreshing, coming off the more scripted level-based approach the other two games offered with their stories. It makes Radical Rescue feel a lot longer and more rewarding of a journey by the end. The tunnels of the mine dungeon you navigate also have some variety, with more underground-looking areas with falling rocks and spitting geysers, some with lanterns, cobwebs, and wooden platforms, and others with more futuristic and tech-heavy designs to them. You will also sometimes find yourself having to exit the mine and go back into it another way, and outside you can see the various boxes and equipment the Foot Clan have left scattered about. What's really cool about the boss encounters in Radical Rescue is that it makes use of several lesser known and obscure villains from the TMNT Rogues Gallery, like Scaletail, Dirtbag, a Triceraton, and the mutant cat in the prisoner uniform named Scratch, equipped with his ball and chain. He was supposedly sentenced to 9 life terms before escaping. Scratch wasn't very popular and made very few appearances in the franchise, only this game I believe, but they did make a toy of him in 1993, which is the rarest and most expensive of all the TMNT action figures, fetching hundreds if not thousands of dollars online depending on the condition it's in, which is just insane. Like I had mentioned, I find Back to the Sewers to be the hardest game of the trilogy, from start to finish, because its gameplay can feel a bit unfair at times. I don't find Radical Rescue to be that difficult if you know where to go and frequently backtrack to get pizzas, which give you an extra life after losing all of your health. With that said, the final boss gauntlet leading up to Shredder is impossible for me, even with all of the health upgrades you can find. So, in order to show you the rest of it, I needed to use invincibility yet again. In Radical Rescue, Shredder has apparently upgraded himself with technology, now called Cyber Shredder. He floats in the air attacking you with spirit bombs that generate pillars of fire when they land. Even if you manage to deplete Shredder's health, he heals himself, and you have to do it all over again, a second time, which is nuts. Once you beat him, you get the final key, and use it to unlock the door, imprisoning April. She thanks you, and you get a message that says Cowabunga. Honestly, not as epic as it could have been, and not really worth all the effort. The graphics in Radical Rescue are the best of the entire TMNT trilogy on Game Boy, in my opinion. The turtles look accurate, and their attack animations are a lot smoother, not to mention the controls are far more responsive as well. I like the story, where you are freeing the other heroes from the prison cells, and the more unique roster of villain characters is a real treat, and the fact that this game functions like a Metroidvania means it stands out from every other Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game in existence. Now, I would assume that most Ninja Turtles fans put Radical Rescue high above Fall of the Foot Clan and Back from the Sewers, just because of how advanced and in-depth it is, compared to the other two games that were very simplistic. But personally, I've never been a big fan of the Metroidvania genre, and since I grew up playing Fall of the Foot Clan the most as a kid and have more nostalgia towards it compared to the later entries in this series, it's still my favorite of the three, which might not be the most popular of opinions. I think most of us would agree that Back from the Sewers is the worst though. Not a terrible game in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles library, but not one of the better ones either, a bit more forgettable in the long run. And with that, I want to thank you all for watching my retrospective and review of the TMNT trilogy on the original Game Boy. I hope you found the video to be entertaining and insightful. Maybe you learned a few things about the TMNT franchise you didn't know before. Let me know your thoughts on the games down in the comment section below, as well as which of the three you find to be your favorite. If you'd like to support the channel and ensure the creation of more content like this, make sure to subscribe, share the video to anyone you feel would enjoy it, hit that bell icon for notifications when I release new content, and become a producer over on patreon.com if you can. I will see you all in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and always stay nerdy.